start going on. Why is so? I'm Thomas Hall, Executive Director of Clean Start. And the reason that we wanted to do a clean tech meetup on mobility is because mobility is pretty much a part of everyone's life. You use it to go to the store, you use it to go to work. It is access, it is connecting to your community, and it is also it is the biggest contributor to greenhouse gases in California. Now, this might be an older um, slide, but it is still very much the case. And we really have an opportunity to rethink, reimagine, and change mobility and transportation to help all of California and to breathe cleaner and healthier. And with that, I'm going to welcome our panelists, Timothy Shannon, Transportation Director at Twin Rivers, Stephanie Sharkiewicz, Air Quality Engineer at Sac Metro Air Quality Management District, and we're happy to have James Corliss, Executive Director of SACOG here. And right now, I'm going to start with Timothy Shannon, and I'm going to spotlight him and let him take it away.
Can it help if I unmuted myself?
There's your beautiful voice.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to give a little insight of what we're doing over at Twin Rivers. I don't know if many of you know who we are, but we are currently the largest electric school bus fleet in the country, and we have a lot of help from SMUD. They are a really tight partner in what we're doing. We started this project about 4.5 years ago, searched out funding, was involved in a 29 bus grant, and we took 16 of them. Elk Grove took 10 and Sac City took 3. What we ended up doing was putting in, a pretty nice infrastructure. At that time, it was only 16 chargers. Half of them were smart chargers. So we started really looking at data and looking at the cost that it per mile cost, which ended up being and still is when we're driving them outside of the COVID realm. It's about 80% savings in fuel cost to operate an electric school bus. One of the other savings that we're seeing in the electric school bus world is that there is very little maintenance cost to it, so you're not stocking a lot of inventory. I think the only thing we really stock on those school buses are light bulbs and a few relays. So it's very low in inventory, and maintenance cost itself is about 60% less in the inspection cycle that we have to do every 45 days. So we're really looking at, we were really looking at the data and decided that, we should really take a really hard look at completely replacing at least 90% of our fleet. At the time, we probably would do 100 now, but we're currently working on another very large project with SMUD, and we're going to be adding 82 chargers to our infrastructure. So with that, we're looking at DC fast charging. We're looking at some AC charging. We're doing an AC V2G project with them, and then we're doing a full board DC V2G project, which I really think that DC is going to be the main player in V2G. Let's see what else. At this point, we have 40 electric school buses. We can't wait to start driving them. We go back to school on 6th of April, which will be exciting for everybody because it's nice to get back to work. In the works, we have another 18 electric school buses showing up by August, which will give us a grand total of 58. And we're looking for funding for at least another 22 over the next year and a half. Pretty much that's it in a nutshell of what we're doing. What I'd like to do, if it's okay with Thomas, is open it up for some questions or some ideas that anybody would like me to elaborate on.
Tim, doing this for school buses seems like, in one respect, the ideal fleet because school buses are in one place for a long time. So it gives you plenty of time to recharge. And that also opened the opportunity to vehicle to grid opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing to use the school buses to support the grid?
So yeah, I will. I'll elaborate on that a little bit. You're exactly right that the duty cycle of the school bus lends well for what we're doing, and it will really help during, peak times. So with vehicle to grid, we're looking at kind of a two-phase look at it. So we want to do, from what I understand, is that SMUD is looking to do some load balancing, or grid balancing with the V2G. That would help with that. And then we're still working out a structure of what the cost, savings are with it. But we're looking at least 10 to 15 of those chargers, the DC chargers, to be vehicle to grid. And we have 5 new V bidirectional chargers also for V2G. Our idea is that we're able to offset some of the cost of power, provide a real learning experience of what vehicle to grid really means, and look at things like what it's going to do to the battery life. Does it increase battery degradation over a period of time? All of those are really big factors in why we're doing it. And another thing we're doing with V2G, and we're adding to the component of this project, is we're adding a backup generator. But the way we're setting it up is that this energy could feed back into the grid or feed a alternate site on the campus for like a reunification center or emergency center in case there was a catastrophic power failure in the area. So that's another part of the equation that we're working on at this time.
And I'll admit my ignorance, but Twin Rivers is where? Is it around Orangevale, or what's the geographic district that you represent?
So Twin Rivers is just on the north side of Sacramento. It encompasses North Sacramento, the Del Paso Heights area, Foothill Farms, and then also the Rio Linda area. So we're rural and urban. That's our demographics. We sit on 127 square miles, and we have McClellan Park right in the middle of our district, so we have to drive around it and partially through it. We are also in a disadvantaged community. We drive into it, and we are a Title I school district.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you for your presentation and the progressiveness of the Twin River Unified School District. It's really awesome. I was just curious, what range do these buses have, and what is a typical route for you?
So that's also a really good question. So I'll just give you a little history, and then we'll go into the routes. When we first got into the electric bus, we decided that how many routes could be really serviced, because everybody said, oh, I drive 100 miles in the morning and 100 miles in the afternoon. Well, that's just not really true. The average school bus drives between 25 and 45 miles in the morning, but the core of it is really around 25 to 35 miles. That's the gist of running it. The range, our initial buses, some of the nickel sodiums we got that were powered by Motive, they're the smaller sped buses. They only have a range of 70 miles, but we drive them on little, door-to-door routes of about 25 miles in the morning and 25 miles in the afternoon. Some of the Type C buses, those are the long ones with the snout on them. Those have a range of about 100 miles, and we're getting about 98 miles out of them on a single charge with not very much battery degradation. But the newer ones we're getting some 125 mile range buses, and then some 150 mile range buses, which, as technology improves, we're getting longer and longer legs on those buses. And then Navistar, which is international, they just showed us a bus almost a month ago now, that they brought it out to us. It actually has a range of 300 miles empty and 200 miles full.
Wow.
So you can see that things are really changing in the electric school bus world.
And it's awesome because you can also charge them in between, so you have quite a range.
Absolutely. And with the way the electric, grid is now is that there's a lot of solar in that midday, so the price of electricity is less.
It's a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Thank
And how
you.
many buses did you say electric buses are in your fleet right now?
40.
40. Wow.
Tim, what you're doing is terrific, and it looks like it's even leadership, not just in our region, but for the country. So it's a lot of great learnings I'm sure you'll be able to share. But can you expand a little bit on Gary's question in terms of the vehicle to grid? In what way do you see, how will the buses be able to help balance and manage the grid? Is it just by shifting loads, or is it feeding back to the grid? And
It-
second, related to that is there any challenge you have in getting sufficient power feeds to where your fleets are situated?
So those are all good questions because on the grid, the vehicle to grid side, we're just getting into it, but we actually see sending power back to the grid, especially during those summer months where we're only driving the buses early in the morning and they're sitting in the yard and charging power at the lowest cost. And then all that power is available for, those peak times in the afternoon that can be drawn from when, let's say, SMUD needs that additional power. That's the beauty of it. It's that duty cycle. A transit bus wouldn't work for that, but the way school buses are used, it works perfectly for that. And could you repeat the second part to that question?
Is there a challenge in terms of getting the appropriate amount of power fed to your facilities to be able to charge such a fleet?
Actually, we're pretty lucky because SMUD has been really, really helpful to us, and we actually have some pretty large transmission lines that run right in the back of the yard. But we have a 500K transformer in the back that we're moving to 1,000, and then we have a 400K up front that we're upgrading to 1,000. And we're going to be using some charge management software, a system that allows us to really, it ties into our GPS system in our routing system. So, and it has some intelligence to it. So it will know the duty cycle of the bus, when it is the best time to charge, and when, and then it will also help with the sending the power back to the grid. And that's really one of the nice things about having a charge management system. So it really is going to make it so and I don't know if SMUD cares or not, but we're going to try to eliminate those peak charges and those high demand charges, stagger the buses turning on and off, only charging what we really need for the duty of the bus, and then having the ability to send power back to the grid. But they've been really, really helpful, and like I said, they're a key partner in what we're doing.
Outstanding. Thank you.
That sounded, I think SMUD would be really eager for that, if anything, to be able to control and limit demand charges, because having been at SMUD board meetings, I do know what they hear a lot about. And we're going to try to we're going to do more questions at the end after everyone, so that way we can get some discussion between the panelists here. So we're going to start kind of walking it forward. Thank you very much, Tim. Look forward to hearing more. Yeah. All right. Next, I would like to recognize Stephanie from the Sacramento Metro Air Quality Management District. She's an air quality engineer there working on car share. So some of you may have gotten emails from me saying clean cars for all. It is not that, it is car share. My intent was I wanted to have someone here to talk about accessing mobility and kind of equity and how we're getting people that need it to into clean cars in the area. So I kept thinking clean cars for all, but the program that I was actually wanting to hear about was community car share. So successfully, I got the right person to come here and talk about that. And I'm going to spotlight her and let Stephanie take over.
All right, let me just get my presentation up here. And get that going. Can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for the introduction, Thomas. I'm Stephanie Charkovitz with the Sacramento Air District. I'm the lead staff implementing the Our Community Car Share Sacramento program and have been doing so since its inception. The Our Community Car Share Sacramento program is a pilot project that provides electric vehicle car sharing to low-income disadvantaged community residents. The Sac Metro Air District is the grantee, and I'm the lead staff. The program is funded by the CCI investment through CARB, their greenhouse gas reduction funds. The car share program is broken up into implementation phases as we've received funding. Each phase has included new subsidized housing locations and with the addition of a mobility hub in phase 3. Each vehicle has a dedicated level 2 charger and parking space. Zipcar has managed all the vehicles in phase 1 and phase 2 and continues to be a partner in phase 3. The program is currently free to all members. For each phase that we've implemented, we've had a goal. For phase 1, the question we wanted to answer was, will it work? Could we successfully set up zero emission car sharing program that residents of subsidized housing would utilize? Happily, the answer to that was yes. We implemented the program in 2017 and we've gotten wonderful feedback from our phase 1 and now phase 2 sites. So phase 2, the question was, could we repeat our success? And that we were able to do that by adding 3 new sites in 2019 with our phase 2 deployment. And with phase 3, we're shifting our focus into sustainability. So we're working on that as we deploy phase 3. In phase 2, we also added the transit incentive card to our portfolio. And this is a Visa card that is limited by merchant code to only transportation. The TIC card provides a monthly transportation subsidy to low-income program members. The TIC allows members to utilize transit, carpooling, microtransit, ride-hail, Amtrak, paratransit, and other transportation providers. The main point of this was to access those that didn't have driver's licenses or were unable or unwilling to drive. So we wanted to open their eyes to the different transportation options that existed beyond car share. Here's a map of the sites for the 3 phases of the program. The phase 1 and phase 2 sites were selected by the partner housing agencies on where they felt was the greatest need and they felt that the program would be best received. Sites were purposefully clustered so that residents could share the cars amongst the communities. And in phase 3, we're welcoming 2 new housing agency partners and our first mobility hub. Some of the challenges that we have faced in launching the program have been contracting and construction timelines. It's something that with programs like these, never underestimate the length of time it takes to contract, and Mother Nature can wreak havoc on construction. The vehicle management, we work with car sharing companies as they are an important but expensive part of car sharing programs. Car sharing has a lot of moving parts, and our car sharing company partner, Zipcar, has been best suited to handle them. We've always touted ourselves as picking the experts in the field to handle their piece, and we find the partners that are best suited for that and work on building and maintaining those relationships. Outreach and education is by far the biggest lessons learned that we've had throughout the program. Building trust throughout the program. When we naively thought that a free program would sell itself, residents were very reluctant to sign up and give us their personal information. They didn't know who the district was. They didn't trust us. we were a government agency, and it was at a time when government was very, very scrutinized in these communities. So therefore, we learned that we needed to enlist other entities to help. And so we enlisted local nonprofits and community groups. And we successfully launched the Car Share Representative Program. That REP program is where volunteers in the communities will help to give rides and answer questions to their fellow residents. And the reps then are given Visa gift cards as compensation for their time. Accessibility, we have online reservation. We set up an online reservation system, hoping that the residents would be able to sign themselves up on their own. Unfortunately, we found that in-person was necessary, not only for educating, but for signing members up and providing overall comfort and building trust in the program. So it was very hands-on. One of the reasons that they had trouble was their access to technology. We tried to overcome this access by providing kiosks. They were a bit clunky and were fraught with problems, so we had to remove them. And we're still in search of better options to provide that technology. Sustainability. The program is very expensive to maintain. We're working on a cost share model, and we're hoping that'll bring some of the costs down, and then exploring other entities, other opportunities to help with other funding sources to help with costs. We're also exploring opening the program to the general public, and in hopes that a full paying fare will offset some of the lower paying fares. Feedback. In fall of 2019, we released a survey to our residents to gain feedback for the program. When a member filled out the survey, they received a gift card, and the need for incentives to get people to participate is very important. We got some really good feedback, very positive reviews of the program, and any feedback we got, we took into consideration to make program changes. Of course, in these communities, language can be an issue, and we encountered a wide variety of languages, all very site-specific. And so we work hard to translate when we can into other languages, and also learn who the sources, the trusted sources are that provide translations within the community. And of course, COVID-19, it has, as with the rest of the world, it has definitely wreaked havoc on the implementation of phase 3 for the program. We were supposed to launch that in 2020. We are now looking to launch in 2021. One of the biggest changes was we had to modify our outreach strategies. This is because our in-person wasn't available for much of 2020. So we had to pivot to Zoom meetings and electronic correspondence, which luckily, we had built the trust in the communities, and so we were able to work with our REP programs and kind of build up on that by offering options for them to meet online and have open discussions so that we could continue building the program. And our next steps. We're in the process of planning for a phase 4 expansion. And our goal is to look at a more mobility hub type so that we can, we feel that centralized locations are the best to serve more people, and they'll be more easily expandable if we find that we don't have enough vehicles. We continue to add more partners, whether it's housing agencies, nonprofits, and or vehicle management companies. We're open to anyone that's interested. The goal of this program is to not exist in the future. We want our members to learn how to use these programs and then use them in our absence. And so it's something that's very important that we work with companies that are already on the ground. And of course, as I mentioned, sustainability is a big focus. In 2021, we plan to launch our cost share model so that we can have members contribute to the cost of the services to help offset the cost, but also to get them used to having to pay, because at some point there will be, we're hoping to keep it less than full price. We are still zeroing in on what that cost would be. And then we're looking for additional funding to help close that funding gap to keep this resource available in the communities. So that's all I have for now. Of course, I'm open for questions. I believe that'll probably happen a little bit later on.
Yeah, we'll have questions for you a little bit later on, but I wanted to ask one quick thing before we transition is what type of, I guess, usage are you seeing on the vehicles in the rideshare program? Are you seeing them getting driven? How many miles a day are you seeing them get driven?
I don't have a miles per day number. We did see a dip in usage due to COVID when things really shut down and there wasn't a lot of people were really reluctant to go out even when they needed to. So we did see a dip there. But our overall miles driven since the program began was over 500,000. We've had almost 40,000 vehicle reservations. And we have almost 600 members in the 7 sites that are currently open, and we'll be adding more sites in phase 3. And we expect, as one of my colleagues has said, she wants to hit 1 million by the end of the year. So might be a little bit of a lofty goal, but I love the ambition.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that. We'll look forward to talking with you more later tonight. Next, I would like to introduce James Corliss, Executive Director at SACOG. SACOG has the Sacramento Area Council of Governments. They've had a big role in this in Sacramento, of course. And one of the things that they have done is they have created a Civic Lab incubator, and its first portion of it was on smart mobility. If you want to read more on it, I would suggest go check out sacog.org, smart mobility. I'll put a link to that in the chat. But now I would like to welcome James Corliss and let him take the floor.
Okay, Thomas, thanks so much. It's good to be with everybody. Let me see if I can make this work. Is that okay? Does that look good? People see that?
Looks good.
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, great. And I also want to recognize I've got Adrian Moretz on my staff at SACOG who really actually manages the Civic Lab program, a lot of our innovative mobility work. So if you have any really tough questions, she's going to have to answer them. I'll take all the applause. So we think this is a really exciting program in this region. I think people are familiar with SACOG, but it's important just to understand we're really the association of. We run across 6 counties and 22 cities. So all 28 local governments, we stretch from Yolo County and Davis all the way up to Lake Tahoe, from the Delta and Sacramento County and Galt all the way up to Yuba City and Marysville. And I came here 4 years ago from running a national nonprofit on transportation and innovation. And it really struck me when I got here. We are the front yard of the state capitol. We have the Air Resources Board, which I would suggest is kind of setting like global transportation and climate policy. And yet with UC Davis, we have Sac State, and yet we could be this great test bed, and we should be this great test bed. And that's a little bit of what we've been trying to kick the tires on with a lot of our work around Civic Lab. So I'm going to run through some kind of project examples just to give you all a sense of what this looks like. And also, really, it kind of gets to our role as a council of governments, a coalition of governments, which is really using the aggregation idea of aggregating across our entire region, across all of our local governments to increase our profile, to increase our purchase power, to increase our ability to innovate. And I'm going to talk a little bit about Civic Lab, and there's a bunch of other projects I want to mention and talk a little bit about what's next as well. So fun little logo. We launched Civic Lab in 2018. And as Thomas said, the first topic for the first year was all about innovative mobility. And I'm a transportation planner, true confessions, true sins of a transportation planner. Most of us in my profession, if you give us a problem, we'll say, we know how to solve it. Just give me lots of money and we'll fix it. And I think where we're at now in our industry, our profession of transportation planning, is we've never been at a more sort of disruptive, uncertain time. And for many of us planners, that is not fun. We don't like uncertainty. But at the same time, I think in transportation, there is such a proliferation of technology, of uses of technology, clean fuels, electric vehicles, autonomous, rideshare. And yes, we're in the middle of a pandemic and coming out of it. And so, and also public transportation has never been kind of more uncertain. But this program, Civic Lab, was really trying to figure out, is there a there? How could we actually test some of these ideas with our local governments and our partners? So we put a challenge out. We said, give us not your solution, but your problem you're trying to solve. Give us your challenge. This is sort of the accelerator version of this Civic Lab program. And so we had a number of teams come together. You see the map here for our region, urban, suburban, and rural. And these are the solutions they came up with, but we made them come up with challenge statements. We put $1 million of public funding into this program, which we have access to at SACOG. We pass through transportation dollars. And we raised another $2 million in partner funding and private funding. So we leveraged another extra $2 million. And we have a number of teams working to kind of solve problems, and they resulted in the following: 10 launched projects, several micro transit services, 2 autonomous passenger shuttles that had demonstration, a lot of data, apps, and congestion relief, a wayfinding effort, and a youth travel training program. But one of the, sometimes the best innovations or the most radical innovations are sometimes the simplest, or in government maybe seem to be the most boring. So this was one of our biggest innovations. And what we realized is for our 28 local governments, and by the way, our dozen transit operators, we pass through public funding to them and ask them to then go do an RFP to find a really cool vendor to do an innovative mobility project. It takes a long time. Procurement is slow, and procurement actually in our local government sector actually can be more complicated. So we went out and did, and again, credit to Adrian on my staff here on the call, we did an umbrella RFQ. We did a procurement, and we put out the challenge statements of all of our cities and counties. And we asked people, come forward if you can actually solve these challenges, if you know how to solve these problems. And we got a really nice mix of so in the middle there, that logo is regional transit. We got some startups. We got Lyft. We got Via. Transdev is a private company, and we basically did sort of a vendor day. We again aggregated all of our teams. We put the word out, and we got vendors that people come in, not just from Miami and New York, but we got them from Europe as well. So people want to know what was up in the state capital of California. And so we were very excited about that. Let's see if I can do this. Okay, all right, let's get to just a couple of projects. This is the very lovable autonomous shuttle called Ollie. Believe it or not, this is a 3D printed shuttle. If you haven't heard of it, it ran around the Sac State campus for a couple of months, and then we took it over to the Rancho Cordova Business Park. Because we had Civic Lab up and running, because we had money deployed in this, and we were able to use it quickly, which is not a term we often use in government, we were able to secure this pilot project in the Ollie shuttle really quickly at very low cost. And we got a whole bunch of data that we collected this. There is no driver, but there is somebody who sort of sits in there and pulls the brake when you need to pull the brake. I mentioned regional transit. They were another vendor, actually. So it's not that this is just about the private sector coming in rather than our public transportation providers. It is about having our public transportation providers think of themselves as problem solvers. So we had vendors who were transit agencies. In this case, RT really helped use the platform of Civic Lab and has really gone big, and credit to RT. With a lot of the microtransit services that you can now get in various parts. And microtransit, if you don't know, is a very sort of basic door to door, point to point, usually door to door, sometimes curb to curb or intersection to intersection, geolocated on-demand transit service, small shuttles. We're trying to make sure that we get as many electric shuttles as we can, but especially in some suburban areas. I'll show you West Sacramento in a second. Microtransit is a great option because if you don't have as frequent a transit service, a bus line, a light rail line, then this is a service that does cost a little bit more in terms of dollars per rider, but it actually gets people where they need to go quicker. Another great one, YOLO Bus, great example here, where another on-demand but a rural example in Knights Landing in Yolo County, where we were able to pilot again, provided by YOLO Bus, but with a couple of our private partners as well. This, yes, is just a simple bus, but up in Apple Hill, in apple growing season, if you ever try to go up to Apple Hill in the fall, you'll know how hard it is to get anywhere, how much traffic it all generates. And so we worked with the county and El Dorado Transit, and basically we cordoned off one of the lanes of the 2-lane road, made it a one-way circle for cars, made you park and get out and ride this shuttle. By the way, here's a great example. I've worked at the federal level for a long time. Our federal air quality funds. So this made people park, get out, ride the bus, not have congestion. And we had the hardest time using federal air quality funds to pay for this because it doesn't look like the typical thing we normally do. So I will tell you, still right now, innovation is the exception, not the rule. And it should be easy to do this stuff. It actually is very hard. So some additional mobility project work. I hope you all know about the jump bikes in Sacramento and West Sacramento and Davis. SACOG held this contract for the 3 cities, the Air District, credit to Stephanie's agency that is doing a lot of this work, came forward a number of years ago now. We kind of hit the cusp of the transition in the bike share market. And this was going to be a publicly owned model. And right before we were going to launch, Jump came to us. Actually, at that point, it was Social Bicycles, then bought by Jump, now owned by Lime. There's the other side of innovation and private sector is be careful because you'll turn around and suddenly somebody's bought somebody else. But these Jump bikes launched in 2018. And before the pandemic, we had one of the most successful bike share programs in North America, second only to Paris in the globe in terms of number of riders per bike per day. And as you probably know, I hope they're e-bikes, so electric bikes. Never have I heard the words fun and transportation in the same sentence. Jump Bikes has actually done that for us. So Lime has bought them. We have renegotiated the contract with Lime. We hold that. The bike share market, the micro-mobility market is going more to scooters. You'll see a lot more scooters around now, and we are, interestingly, trying to make sure that we get enough of a split with bikes. We also have an equity program. We have requirements for them to redeploy bikes into low-income communities. We have an annual pass for $5 to $10 for low-income residents. So we're really trying to push the envelope on this. At the moment, we're still pretty low ridership, although it is coming back the last couple of months as we've seen things begin to reopen. I mentioned the VIA on-demand microtransit in West Sacramento. We think this is an excellent program. The former mayor of West Sacramento, Christopher Cabaldon, said that this was the first time that the microtransit met the ice cream test, which was that he met a grandmother who could go to the grocery store and come home with ice cream and would not melt, because before that she had to take 3 different bus routes, took too long. So again, microtransit, we like to think of it as if a public bus married an Uber and had a kid, it would be microtransit. It's on demand, it's point to point, but it's multiple people, multiple routes. You're not hopefully just taking one-off rides, you're actually ride sharing as you go, driven by technology and everything else. Geofencing, this is a great example pilot from Rancho Cordova, first last mile. We are looking at trying to figure out if we can get Lyft to provide discounts on rides to get from the light rail to the business park, because there's great light rail service to Rancho, but doesn't quite stretch to all of the businesses. and the workplaces. That last mile is critical. We're hoping to subsidize Lyft on this pilot. There's a great incentive program run by Regional Transit, which is really about gamification and getting people to actually compete against one another to take alternative and greener modes. And so what's next? And this, by the way, again, is all the fantastic work of the SACOG staff and a lot of our cities and counties and transit agencies. We were going to actually launch a new mobility accelerator last year, very similar to the projects I just showed you. Pandemic made us delay that. We actually pivoted and we're doing a telework pilot project right now to see if we can get telework, now that we're all being forced into it, to remain a bit of a way of doing things, because we think that's really important. And we're trying to figure out actually how do we work with companies as we reopen so that telework really is a viable transportation alternative to work from home. We're hoping this year to launch a redesigned Civic Lab, as I mentioned, that accelerator, and a new innovative mobility program, which we can tell you more about. So there you go. It's exciting times in transportation. The future's never been more uncertain, and I think we should take full advantage of it. So happy to answer any questions. Thanks.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm going to go and I'm going to move on to all the exciting questions that we'll hopefully have.